Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. I mentioned before that I was going to need to go through my store adding to the vignettes, and in doing that each of my videos is going to be on adding to some of these vignettes, and I felt like that would get me more caught up and also give you guys a change of pace. So in my last video, I did a flower vignette in green, and this is the top shelf of that area. So I thought that although I didn't want to do more of that particular decor, I wanted something that would go along with it. So I decided to do it in birds. And I already had a bird house there anyway, so this will work out great. Now this is just a block of wood, and I say a block of wood, but it actually is a piece that is cut from a bedpost. So it's very plain, but I still hang on to items like this because I know that although I don't see anything extra decorative in this, it can be used as a base for something, which is what I'm going to be using it for here. I'm just freshening it up. I like the darker wood, so I want those ends to match and where I sanded it to match, but I also want to even out the color on it. And I didn't cover the top well because I'm going to be gluing these little pink pots on it. But these are a few that we had already base coated, but they were a little damaged and maybe they got squished or something. I'm not sure, but I'm wanting these to have some torn places on them. That way you can see the decor and that's inside, and it would also add to the dimension of this piece. So I'm going to be gluing two of these on the top and then one on the front. And because this is more or less cardboard, then it's going to glue well with just some hot glue. So I tore these. This one I'm tearing a little more than the other, and then the one on the bottom I'll tear it some also in the front. But then I'm going to take some of my distress ink and kind of go around the edges later. So to kind of keep that tearing from looking like it was just freshly done. Two on the top, and now I'm just trying to decide how I want this one placed and where I need to glue to. I want to glue where it will be touching the upper pots as well, because I've already put the wax on the bottom front, and so I was afraid that wouldn't hold too well. So now that I was happy with the placement, and I guess as it turns out, I didn't tear my lower pot. I was thinking I tore them all three, but I didn't the lower pot. And I have this rice paper that I ordered from Decoupage Central. And I'm going to be taking some Mod Podge and gluing some of these pieces to the fronts of these pots. And when I'm using a particular image on rice paper, or any paper for that matter, and I'm decoupaging it on, I always like to tear the image out instead of cutting it, because then you don't get that sharp edge and it just kind of blends in better and looks a lot more natural. And I don't know about you guys, but I just love using rice paper. I think it's such a pretty material to work with and very sturdy. So it lays down really well because I think it's porous enough that the air doesn't get trapped behind it, but it's still very sturdy when you're trying to put a lot of pressure on it to smooth it out. Now I'm trying to think about my arrangement when I add these, and making sure that when I put my decor inside them, and some will be hanging out here and there, that you'll still see those images. So I'm just kind of taking my time trying to figure out where to do the placement. And I love these little neutral birds for this because I think it goes well with the darker wood and the white. And then what I'm going to put inside these are, I'm going to add some Spanish moss, and I'll just stuff that down in there and let some kind of come out the top. And then I'm going to be adding some little sprigs of greenery and also some little eggs. And in case you don't have the distress ink that I'll be using on this, I will add a link to that in the description, along with the little brushes that I use, or the little foam pads that I use to apply it. And these are the little foam eggs that you get from the Dollar Tree, and they're usually colorful and even sparkly. But I put them in a bag with a few drops of paint, and roll them around and base coat them that way. And then I put some watered down, darker colored paint, and then dip a toothbrush in it and spritz it that way. That's the best way to get, or that I've found to get these. I've also used a stiffer paintbrush and did the same thing, but it works well to use a toothbrush. But I always buy those little eggs in different sizes from the Dollar Tree because I love the lightweight eggs in items like this. Now this is a very simple one. This is also a little part of a post. And as you can see, it's not in the greatest shape, but I don't mind. I like the rough look of it. And I'm just going to take some stain, or some brown wax rather, which, by the way, Dixie Belle brown wax is what I used on that last piece. And I'm just going to cover up all that, and it will be kind of irregular, which is fine with me. And it will be just a little thing to raise this little bird up. This bird I already had, and it's already been painted. And I'm just going to glue it with some Gorilla Glue on the top of this. Now, when I put this glue here, or this brown wax here, I purposely don't put it in the center because, again, just like with the last piece, I want to make sure that I get some good hold to that. So I'm going to add some Gorilla Glue and glue that on the top. And then all that I'm going to do on this little post is just this brown wax. And then I'm not going to add anything else to this. I'm just going to have that little bird on that little post, and that will be a good thing to add into this little vignette in a small area where I don't have room for much, but I need just a little something. Also, just like with the last video, when I need to add a little something in, a lot of times we'll just add a little sign. And this was a pressed wood shelving board that we took out of one of the closets at home. And I didn't throw away the wood. I know that it's not real pretty, but when you paint it, you don't notice that it is pressed wood. And I can make little signs out of it. So because that's a wider board, I can cut different size signs, and this one is just going to be one that I'm going to stencil something on. And while I was cutting this one, I went ahead and cut another one, and I'm going to do 2 different stencils on these. I'm only going to use one in this particular vignette, but I'll have it to use in another. And I will include some links to some stencils that I have that I ordered from Amazon. And they're just a really simple way to make something to add to your vignette. And a lot of people like to decorate with these little signs. And I thought that this would be perfect for this particular vignette. And again, I'll be doing another one that I'll just save for another one, probably in my next vignette. But I'm not looking for full coverage here because I want kind of a worn look. So I went very lightly with it, and then I lifted my stencil to see if I was happy with it, and it ended up adding just a little bit more, but I still wanted to keep it kind of weathered looking. And the brushes that I'm using here to stencil with Stays On ink is some makeup brushes that a lot of people like to use for stenciling. And if you haven't tried them, they are wonderful to work with, and I'll include that link in the description. Now this was a candlestick, and I actually ordered several of these, and when they came, it was very, very rough like this. And I can make this work, and I actually started to make a riser with this and added a saucer to the top, but I just couldn't decide exactly where I was going with it, so I had it in my stash. And then I found this little creamer, so I'm going to glue this to the top with some Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to kind of lay it over like this because I'm going to build an arrangement in it, and to kind of distract from some of the roughness of the candlestick. I'm not sure why they didn't sand those, but to distract from some of it, I do like the rustic look with this, and I think it will work. But I'm going to add some vining around the bottom to just to kind of hide a little bit of that, and also just kind of bring the arrangement on down. So this is some floral or some greenery that I get from the Hobby Lobby. And I love how realistic it is, and it comes in vine form. So I'm going to be using it in parts of this. This is just some moss of some kind that I thrifted that I'm adding here. But that little vining I'm going to kind of add around the base some. And then I'm going to add a little arrangement with a couple of eggs in it, and add a hang tag to this. And kind of just have it in the store as a little spring or summer arrangement. And all of the moss and greenery here I'm just adding with some hot glue. And in case you're wondering why I didn't just sand these little candlesticks, it's something to do with the way they cut them. They're just so rough that it just made it impossible to sand them. Now this next item, and I think I've showed you these birds before. I order these from Ryan & Son in Ringgold, Georgia. I don't order them, I actually go pick them up. But they come either brown or black, and although I love them, they're cast iron, they need a little bit more. And oftentimes I paint them. In this case, all that I'm going to do is add some white wax to them. making sure to get plenty on them so that there's plenty that goes down into the little details. And then I'm just going to wipe that off, and that is as simple as it gets. That is enough to kind of freshen it up and give it some dimension and make that make the detail in it pop. And now the last item, and probably my favorite, is we started with this little 2x4, and it's probably 8 to 10 inches long. I didn't measure it. I just found it in my stash outside, and I'm going to paint it in the color drop cloth and let it dry well and turn it into a little riser. If you don't have a husband who likes to build things like I do, and he often has little pieces like this, and I dare him to throw them away because I can use them. And especially around Christmas time, I make so many things out of these little pieces of 2x4. And if you don't have a husband who likes to build and have those on hand, you can go to construction sites, and they're all over the place. In my town, there's just subdivisions going up everywhere, and you can often ask the people who are working if you can have their discarded wood, and they are almost always very happy to have you haul it off. And a lot of times it's already cut into pieces like this because it's just something that they had to cut off something they were using. So once I get this completely covered and let it dry well, then I'm just going to take my little hand sander and go around all the edges to distress those edges and to neaten up and make it smoother. Where the saw has cut it, a lot of times you get a sharp edge, and I just went over it with a little sander and neatened that up somewhat. And this is my plan here. I've got this rice paper, again, that I got from Decoupage Central. And I'm going to use a combination of it and the little scripture stamp on the front of it. Now, I get lots of questions about where I get my scripture stamps. And they used to be very readily available on Amazon and even at Hobby Lobby. But I noticed that even Hobby Lobby has a lot smaller selection of scripture stamps. And although I don't find many wooden scripture stamps on Amazon, I do find a lot of clear scripture stamp sets. And so I'm going to include everything that I found in the description. So now I'm placing this image on the side, and I'm good with it overlapping on the top and around the corner, but I'm going to cut that off on the bottom. But then I'll add my stamp to the other side. Now I'm taking some Spanish moss here and putting plenty of glue in it, and I'm just going to kind of work that in and just kind of shape it into a little nest. And it doesn't have to be perfect at all, but I do want it to hold together. And then once it dries, I will glue it along with a couple little foam eggs and a bird to the top of this little riser. And I glued the nest on with just some hot glue because it doesn't take much to hold that on. but I will have to use some Gorilla Glue or a stronger glue to glue the little bird on. Today was a very special day at the shop, and I got some visits from some very sweet viewers. And Jerry from Mississippi was one of them, and she brought this beautiful hang tag along with some goodies for me to craft with. But most of you who have watched me long know that I love the Bible verse that has "Be still and know that I am God." And so it was extra special to get this one. And I always love when people use the corrugated cardboard as a base. I think it just adds such a pretty look. And I was also visited by Lynn, a very sweet lady, and her beautiful daughter, Bethany, from South Carolina. And we learned that we have so much in common and that we are kindred spirits. We got to talk about the Lord a lot, and it was just a really sweet visit. And near the end of the day, I got a visit from a very sweet couple, John and Nelda from Texas. And they were also some of the sweetest people, and we got plenty of time to visit with them. And Nelda even bought some of my items that are in this video. And this is one that she bought, and also this one. And I also wanted to mention her husband, John. He was such a sweet soul, and he loves his wife so much. It was his idea to bring her here, and he's just so supportive of her, and I just thought that was the sweetest thing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.